She found undeveloped film in a tree. The photos rewrote history. A woman was cutting down a dead tree on her family's abandoned farm, but when her chainsaw hit something metal, she stopped. What she found hidden inside the ancient oak had been waiting there for 80 years, and it would rewrite history. But before we start our story, make sure you're subscribed if you haven't already, and hit that notifications bell so you won't miss any of our new stories. The farm was a ghost. It had been in Sarah's family for generations, but it had been abandoned for over 60 years. Weeds choked the fields. The old farmhouse sagged under the weight of time. For Sarah, a graphic designer from the city, inheriting this land was a burden, a tangled mess from the past she had to clean up. Her plan was simple: clear the land, sell it, move on. At the edge of the property stood a monster of a tree, a massive, ancient oak. It was the oldest living thing for miles around, or rather, it had been. The tree was now dead. Its branches were bare and skeletal. Its thick trunk was hollowed out by time. It was a safety hazard. It had to come down. Sarah felt a pang of sadness. Cutting down this tree felt like severing the last link to her family's history on this land. But it had to be done. She fired up the powerful chainsaw. The engine roared to life, shattering the quiet of the countryside. She began the first cut into the thick, gnarled trunk. Sawdust flew into the air. The work was hard, sweaty, demanding. She was making good progress. The deep notch in the trunk was growing. And then it happened. With a high-pitched, metallic screech, the saw bucked violently in her hands. Sparks flew from the chain. She immediately released the throttle, her heart pounding from the shock. What was that? She thought. A rock? An old piece of fence wire? She carefully peered into the dark, hollow part of the tree, and there it was, the glint of metal. It wasn't a rock, it was a rusted metal cylinder. It was wedged deep inside the tree. The wood had grown around it, embracing it, swallowing it. It looked like a strange mechanical heart in the center of the ancient oak. A deep curiosity replaced her annoyance. What was this thing, and how long had it been here? Getting it out was a battle. It was stuck fast. The tree had held it in a wooden grip for decades. Sarah spent the next hour working at it. She used an axe to chip away the wood. She used a crowbar to pry and lever. Finally, with a groan of stressed wood, the cylinder came loose. It fell to the ground with a heavy thud. She picked it up. It was heavy. It was an old, military-style container, sealed with a large, threaded cap. Someone had taken great care to make sure it was airtight, and they had taken even greater care to hide it. A secret, buried not in the ground, but in a living tree. Her mind raced with possibilities. Was it money? Old family documents? Something dangerous? With a surge of adrenaline, she put the cylinder in a vise in the old barn. She took a large wrench and clamped it onto the cap. She pulled with all her might. The rusted threads resisted. They groaned in protest. The cap broke free. A soft hiss filled the silent barn. She was expecting gold coins, or maybe a roll of yellow deeds, but what slid out was something else entirely. Dozens of small, tightly wound rolls. They were wrapped in waxed paper and tied with string. Beneath them, a small, oilskin-wrapped book slid out. A journal. She carefully picked up one of the small rolls. She untied the string. She unrolled it. She instantly recognized it. It was camera film. Dozens of rolls of old, undeveloped camera film. She sat down on an old stool, completely stunned. Who in her family was a photographer? And why would they hide their work so carefully inside a tree for 80 years? The first page of the journal held the answer. In faded ink, she read the name. Arthur Jenkins, her great-grandfather, the quiet farmer who had gone to war and never returned. Sarah sat in the dusty silence of the barn, the weight of the discovery settling upon her. Arthur Jenkins. A name from a faded family tree. A quiet farmer, a hero who died in the Second World War. That was all she knew. But now, holding his journal, she was about to learn the secret he had taken to his grave. The handwriting was neat, precise. The words were not those of a simple farmer. They were the words of a poet, a scientist. The journal revealed a hidden life. Arthur, her great-grandfather, had been a passionate, self-taught naturalist and a brilliant photographer. He wrote about his shyness, his fear that his passion would be seen as a frivolous waste of time by his practical, hard-working neighbors. So he kept it a secret. The farm was his cover. but the wild, ancient forests that surrounded it were his true home. His real work began at dawn, before anyone else was awake. He would take his camera and slip into the woods. A ghost in his own life. His mission was urgent. He saw the world changing around him. Old forests were being cleared for new farmland. The animals he had known since childhood were becoming rarer every year. His secret project was to create a perfect photographic record of this vanishing world, a final testament to the beauty he saw. The last entry was dated spring 1942. He wrote that he had been drafted. He had to leave for the war. He couldn't bear the thought of his life's work being lost or misunderstood. So he sealed it all in an airtight tube. He hid it in the heart of the ancient oak tree at the edge of the farm. His guardian, he called it. He hoped to return one day, but if he didn't, he prayed that someone, someday, would find his work. He wanted them to see the world as he had seen it. Sarah closed the journal, tears streaming down her face. This abandoned farm was not a burden anymore. It was a sacred trust. She was no longer just clearing the land. She was fulfilling her great-grandfather's last wish. But the film was almost 80 years old. Developing it would be incredibly delicate. It could all be lost in a flash of light. She spent weeks researching. She finally found a specialist in a city 300 miles away, a man who was an expert in handling and developing archaic film formats. She carefully packed the precious rolls and drove them to his lab herself. The expert was cautious. 80 years in a tree, he said, shaking his head. The chances of getting a clear image are almost zero. We should prepare for the worst. The wait was agonizing. 2 weeks later, she got the call. "You need to come back to the lab, Miss Jenkins," the expert said. His voice was different. It was filled with a sense of awe. "You need to see this for yourself." And she gasped. The images were not faded. They were not blurry. Because of the perfect, airtight seal, the negatives were pristine. The photographs were crystal clear. They were breathtaking, and the animals in them were ghosts. It wasn't just pictures of deer or squirrels. Arthur had captured a world that no longer existed. One photo showed a flock of passenger pigeons, a species thought to be long extinct. Another showed a crystal-clear image of an eastern cougar, a ghost cat that most experts believed was only a legend in that region. There were photos of a species of butterfly unique to that single valley, its intricate wing patterns now lost to the world forever. Arthur wasn't just a documentarian. He was an artist. The photos were beautifully composed. They captured the spirit of the animals, their wildness, their beauty, their soul. Sarah knew she was looking at something more than just a family legacy. She took the collection to the National Museum of Natural History. The experts were stunned into silence. The photos were a biological and historical treasure, a Rosetta Stone of a lost ecosystem, a perfect window into a vanished world. The discovery became a global sensation. The quiet farmer, Arthur Jenkins, became a celebrated figure in the worlds of photography and biology. 80 years after his death, he was finally seen for who he truly was. Sarah never sold the farm. The overgrown fields and the dilapidated farmhouse were not a burden anymore. They were the home of a secret genius. She turned the land into a nature preserve, a tribute to her great-grandfather's hidden life. She would often walk through the woods at dawn, trying to see the world through his eyes. She had come to the farm to cut down a dead tree. Instead, she had brought her great-grandfather's lost world and his incredible legacy back to life.